Have you ever wondered why Satan, the prince of darkness, would battle the mighty Archangel Michael over a lifeless body? One of the Bible's most mysterious events describes a cosmic confrontation. Unlike any other, Satan contended with Michael for the body of Moses. But why? What made Moses' body so valuable that it became the center of such an intense spiritual battle? This biblical mystery is mentioned in Jude 1:9. But Michael the archangel, when he disputed with the devil and argued about the body of Moses, did not dare pronounce against him a railing judgment, but said, "The Lord rebuke you." This single verse raises so many questions. Why would Satan want Moses' body? Why didn't Michael fight Satan directly, but instead called on God's authority? And what does this mysterious story reveal about spiritual warfare today? To fully understand this, we must look at the life of Moses, the trials he faced, the spiritual encounters he had, and why God himself buried him in an unknown location. We must also consider what would have happened if Moses' tomb had existed today. Join us on this spiritual journey as we unravel this ancient mystery that could change how we view spiritual warfare forever. Who was Moses? To understand why Satan fought for his body, we must first know who Moses was. Moses was not an ordinary man. He was an embodiment of the Spirit of God, chosen by God to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, served as both a prophet and a leader. Born at a time when Pharaoh had ordered the death of all Hebrew male infants, Moses' life was miraculous from the start. Saved by divine providence, he was raised in Pharaoh's palace, but later fled Egypt after killing an Egyptian who was mistreating an Israelite slave. After years in exile, God called Moses through the burning bush and commissioned him to confront Pharaoh with the demand, "Let my people go." With the power of God, Moses unleashed 10 plagues upon Egypt, leading to the Exodus, the parting of the Red Sea, and the Israelites' journey toward the Promised Land. But Moses' leadership was not easy. The Israelites constantly rebelled, complained and doubted God, putting Moses in challenging positions. He spoke with God face to face, received the 10 Commandments, and interceded for the people numerous times when God's wrath was about to consume them. However, despite his faithfulness, Moses was denied entry into the Promised Land due to one significant act of disobedience. In Numbers 20:7-12, when the people were thirsty, God instructed Moses to speak to a rock, and water would flow from it. But out of anger towards the rebellion of the Israelites, Moses struck the rock twice. Though water still came out, God declared that Moses would not lead Israel into the land of Canaan because he had failed to honor God's command. This moment was a pivotal turning point in Moses' life. He had led the Israelites for 40 years, but would not cross into the land of promise. Moses was one of the few people in the Bible who had profound and direct encounters with God. 1. Seeing God's glory. In Exodus 33:18-23, Moses requested to see God's glory. God told him that no one could see his face and live, but he allowed Moses to see his back as he passed by. This was a unique encounter that transformed Moses in ways unimaginable. 2. The shining face of Moses. After spending 40 days and nights on Mount Sinai receiving the law, Moses' face shone with the radiance of God's presence. Exodus 34:29-35. The Israelites were so overwhelmed by his appearance that he had to wear a veil. This shows the extent to which Moses was filled with the presence of God. 3. Israel's worship of Moses. Because of these encounters, there was a danger of the Israelites seeing Moses as more than a prophet. His radiance, his role as mediator between them and God, and his leadership made them almost revere him as divine. This is crucial in understanding why Satan wanted his body. Moses died at the age of 120 on Mount Nebo, overlooking the Promised Land. Deuteronomy 34:1-6. What makes his death unique is that God himself buried him, and no one knows where his grave is. This is unlike any other burial in the Bible. Why did God hide Moses' body? One possible reason is that if the Israelites had found Moses' tomb, they would have turned it into a shrine. worshipping Moses rather than God. Given their history of idolatry, such as worshipping the golden calf at Mount Sinai, it is highly likely that they would have exalted Moses' remains, creating a place of pilgrimage that could have led them away from true worship. This brings us to the cosmic battle that took place after Moses' death. But why did Satan contend for Moses' body? Jude 1:9 reveals a celestial battle. Satan and Michael fought over Moses' body, but why? One, to corrupt the Israelites. Satan might have wanted Moses' body to use it as an object of idolatry. If the Israelites had a physical place to worship Moses, it could have led to widespread spiritual deception. This would have been a significant victory for Satan, drawing people away from God. To challenge God's authority. Satan's rebellion against God has always been about power and control. By claiming Moses' body, Satan could have been trying to exert dominion over one of the most influential figures in biblical history, challenging God's decision to hide his burial, to prevent a future resurrection. Some scholars believe that Moses, along with Elijah, appeared during Jesus' transfiguration, Matthew 17:1-3. Satan might have sought to interfere with God's plan for Moses to play a role in future events. Despite the battle, Michael did not fight Satan with his own strength. Instead, he rebuked him by saying, "The Lord rebuke you." This is a powerful lesson in spiritual warfare. Michael the Archangel had the authority to fight, yet he chose to rely on God's power rather than his own. This teaches us that when faced with spiritual battles, we must depend on God's authority, not our strength. The significance of this story today. 1. Beware of idolatry. If Moses' body had been found, people might have worshipped it. Today, we must be careful not to idolize religious figures, places, or even personal experiences above God. Whose spiritual battles are real. The conflict over Moses' body shows us that the unseen spiritual world is active. Satan still seeks to deceive and lead people away from God. When victory comes through God's power, Michael did not rebuke Satan in his own name, but in the name of the Lord. This reminds us that true spiritual authority belongs to God alone. The battle over Moses' body is a glimpse into the cosmic struggle between good and evil. Satan wanted to use Moses' body for his own schemes, but God ensured that his plan was not thwarted. Moses' story is not just about the past, it holds lessons for us today. His life reminds us of the dangers of disobedience, the power of God's presence, and the reality of spiritual warfare. Most importantly, it teaches us that no matter how fierce the battle, victory belongs to God alone.